User identification, Inspector DeWitt. Inspector Baker and I received a domestic disturbance call at 11:28 p.m. The two of us departed from the station at exactly 11:46 p.m. and arrived precisely at 12:07 a.m. To be specific, the domestic disturbance call was a noise complaint. The caller said something about strange, monstrous animal sounds coming from a warehouse near the docks. We assumed it was the usual, right? Some kind of mutation probably found its way through the safety grid. We scoped the place out. There were no signs of forced entry on the front door or the windows. We went around to the sides of the house and there was no break-in there either. When we went around back, though, we found a large hole. It looked like a bus had smashed through it, while the back door wasn't even touched. Baker took point, as usual. We were still operating under the assumption that it was a simple mutation, some kind of charred under the influence of some hard narcotics, maybe that new blue morning dust stuff. But something felt off to me. Either way, we made our way in. The room was pitch black, except for the faint glow of the moon peeking through the demolished wall and our flashlights. We swept the room top to bottom. We found some shipping manifestos, crates of preserved fish, basic stuff you'd expect in a warehouse this close to the river. As I was looking through some files on a desk, Baker told me to keep it down. Said, "Did you hear that?" He flashed his light towards a wall that led further into the warehouse, and sure enough, there was another hole, same as what was on the outer wall. I aimed my light and my service pistol towards it, and I tried to speak up, but all I saw was a gray blur as a large creature dove out of the hole and grabbed Inspector Baker before I could finish my sentence. The creature must have been 11, maybe 12 feet tall. It's hard to describe what it looked like, aside from its massive size and its hideous face. It had Baker by the neck, and it raised him into the air, flashing its gnarled, jagged teeth that stretched across its whole face. I ordered it to put him down, but it just continued to grin. Baker was gasping for air as this beast lifted him up and grabbed his ankles with its other hand. Baker managed to get 3 words out. "Get out of here." I tried to shout back that I wasn't going to leave him behind, but as I tried to speak, over the past 2 centuries, I've worked for this organization. I've heard some pretty fucked up stuff. The sound of a baby blood drinker crying over its mother that I just had to sink a bullet into. Or the howls of my mentee as I drove a knife through his cursed, matted flesh. The list could go on. But nothing will ever stick out to me as much as what I heard tonight. Okay. The beast lifted him over its head, and with what looked like incredible ease, ripped Inspector Baker in half. I stood there. His blood sprayed over my face. The sound of his muscle and bone being torn apart, and his screams ringing in my ears. I unloaded every last bullet from my handgun into that beast, and as I did so, my flashlight started to flicker and burnt out, leaving the blue light from my bullets bouncing off his hide, illuminating this horrific scene. The bullets did nothing. It felt like when you were a kid and you test fire your water gun on the pavement. They just skidded off its hide. Knowing my gun was now useless, I turned around and ran out of that warehouse. But just before I made it out of the darkness into the cold, pale moonlight, I looked over my shoulder. I saw this thing's jaw unhinge like a snake as he raised the upper half of my partner into the air and dropped it into its mouth, swallowing him whole. I darted around that building and made my way to our parked squad car. I picked up the long-range telephone and called for backup at my location as I frantically tried to start the engine. The creature burst through the front of the building and started to charge my vehicle. Just as it was inches away from me, the engine finally turned over. I put that puppy in reverse and slammed on the gas. As I drove down the dark streets, it gave hot pursuit. The only way I could tell it was still chasing me was when I would go around turns and pump the brakes and see its horrible figure bounding towards me in the illuminated red lights. After about 40 minutes of trying to lose my tail, gaining inch after inch, it gave up. I could see it standing in the moonlight, staring at me as it faded over the horizon. I made my way back to the station. And, well, here we are. The time is now 1:42 a.m. We haven't heard any word from the reinforcements I sent to the warehouse, and all of us here at the station expect the worst. If I can find any peace of mind through all this, it's that, as far as we know, it's going after us, and not any civilians. At least for now. And that's all I can report on for now. This was Inspector Virgil DeWitt. This is case file 872-507A, signing out.